Hey everybody, thanks for joining me live. It's 2 o'clock Mountain Time. We'll be at 4 o'clock Eastern every Wednesday. Great to see you. A couple announcements. First of all, you'll notice that Meg's missing, my trusty sidekick. Hey Shelly. My trusty sidekick is missing, and she's actually off doing a podcast with Jeffrey Hazlett, who has a new book out called The Hero Factor, which we were honored to contribute to. So she's off doing that, and that was booked long before we set our live time. So unfortunately, she won't be here today. But that also means that I am working from home today. She's taking the office because it's important for her to be I have some super quiet surroundings. For me, I am blessed to have my partner's brother's family staying with us this week. And so upstairs, there's a little 1.5-year-old who's napping. So if you hear some noises, that's what that is. But delighted to have them. So I'm sure you have family around this time of year, and even if you don't, I'm sure you have big enough hearts to allow us that bit of grace. A couple announcements I wanted to share before we really get started. Let a couple of people have a chance to hop on. We're going to be in New York City in a couple weeks, the first full week in December. And if you are in New York or will be headed to New York for other reasons, or for the reason we're going, which is the Hero Club and the C-Suite Network Conference, please let us know. Happy to coordinate a coffee or a cocktail, which is kind of a thing. You know, I always think of cocktails in New York because nobody ever gets up early enough for coffee, it doesn't seem like. They always say that New York is the city that never sleeps. It's really the city that sleeps in, but don't tell anybody. A couple other announcements. 2019. So we're filling up our calendar for training for 2019. So if your organization or your representative of your organization thinks that they might want to have us come and do IX leadership training, happy to do that. Reach out to us. We can help coordinate some materials and work out some pricing and all that kind of stuff. So we're filling every day, it seems like this week and last week we've been getting requests. So if you think your organization might have an interest, and now's a good time to talk to them to get in on that 2019 budget time. And then we are actually offering a class in the Black Hills of South Dakota in, I think it's January 21st and 22nd. Some leadership training, IX leadership class. And the cool thing is it's a 2-day class. After you come out of there, you walk out with IX certification, which means that you get to use our IX leadership book and all of the IP in it in your business or for your business. So yeah, thanks, Jake. Jake's still working on his organization to get us in there. So we do have that class coming up. I think it's $997 for that 2-day class. It's 2 full days, professional development style, so it's full days. It's in Rapid City. So if you're interested in that, let us know. And as members of our community, you get a discount. So reach out to us if you think you're interested in that. And then also we've had some people invite their friends to join our IX community, which is super exciting. And what we offer for people, you guys are special. And as we do training, we invite all those people that have had training with us to join our IX community. And so those people get in as part of their package program. For new people that might want to join us, we have a $7.99 a month fee, just basically to help keep the wheels on, help Michelle, pay Michelle's time and all the things that we offer. And so, but we do offer 60-day free to those new folks that haven't been in any other program with us. And so that allows them to see if the IX community is really for them before they have to commit to sticking around. But of course, we'd love to have them. So thank you for inviting your friends to join us here. And yeah, and I think that's all the announcements we have. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Hey, Carrie, how are you? Okay, so today the topic is culture types, and how we are setting these lives up is the first 20 minutes or so is going to be sort of prepared training material. And then the second 20 minutes or so is going to be about questions that come from the community. So on Monday, Michelle invited you to take a poll to see what questions that we could answer for you around culture types. And the winner is, how do culture types, I forget how it actually was phrased, but essentially, how do I know if my job is a good fit for me, or a new job might be a good fit for me in the first place? So to start with, though, we're going to talk a little bit about culture types and why. I'm going to give you a little bit of background about how they came to be and why they seem to be so powerful for so many people. And it's just really fascinating. The more we do it, the more and more and more it seems to really work for organizations and individuals. So how this all came about is that we were really frustrated with the existing sort of personality typing that's out there, in the sense of how it works in a team environment. So there's just a million of them, right? We all know them: Myers-Briggs, DISC, Strength Finders, speaking style or social styles. Anyway, there's a million. And the cool thing about them is that they tell you a lot about who you are as an individual. And for leadership training, we find this is super useful. The hard part, of course, is that when you get more than a few people in the room, it's really hard to think back to those things about how you work as a team together. So that was part of the impetus of how do we create a typing system that actually focuses on the real challenges of business today. I mean, that's the backstory is, of course, the two things that we think about all the time are constant change, and which is sort of the hallmark of business, and working in a team. I mean, I don't care who you talk to, whether it's Elon or Oprah or any other sort of celebrity CEO, they'll tell you, as well as I will, that you can't do anything without a great team, without your people. Without our people, we're nothing. And so we really wanted to create a typing structure that really resonated more with a team and a group. And if you've used the other typing systems like Myers-Briggs or DISC or whatever, to good effect in a team, we love to hear those stories too, because we're always looking for how can we leverage what people have experienced in their own groups, and or if you've tried to use it and it didn't work, if you have some insight into why it didn't work, we'd love to hear those things too. So that was kind of the one side. It was like, these things don't really seem to work in teams very well. So on the flip side of that, we also were working, I was really focused on the change stuff. I love understanding how people deal with changes and how you go through a transition. And even myself, I really got interested in for me. And so I started doing a lot of research on why this was and how it worked and the transition models and all that stuff. But what I was still sort of elusive in all of those transition model research and readings and information is that some people, like Jake in our group here, he loves change, right? He just eats it up. I do too. I really like change a lot. I think that's, I've gotten better at it, frankly. But I grew up moving around a lot when I was a kid. And so I think I naturally have either by sort of how I was or how I was raised, have a lot more tolerance for change and see opportunity in change. And so some of us really love and dig into change, and it's delicious and exciting. And other people are like, no thanks, like just really not interested in changes. And then there's some other people who really don't mind change, but they see how it affects people around them, and they really resist change because they know that it will be hard on other people. And so it's just really, I was just really interested in, could we really figure out or predict who's going to be those like rah-rah change people in a very sort of process-oriented way? I mean, sometimes we kind of know just by gut feel, but how do we actually figure it out? And how do we know the people that will be like, oh, I don't know. And so because, of course, when we have big changes, whether in our personal life or in our organization, everyone's got to get there somehow. And so we really try to figure out when we work with a team or an organization, how to take a look at who is in your team strategically, who's going to be out front helping get you there, and who's going to be resistant, acknowledging that we don't really think that anybody is right in this case, right? We truly believe that those people that are resisting change are doing it because they really feel like it's in the best interest of themselves and their group of humans, their team or their organization. The people that are out front are doing it because they truly think it's in their best interest and their organization's best interest. So the really hard part about it is everyone thinks they're right. And so you got to figure out how to get everyone together and go in a way that's productive and exciting for everybody. So how we got around to actually culture typing is we thought, okay, well, that was sort of the other side, was this change idea. And then we had this other thing about, the balance of how we need a new typing system that can help identify these things a little better. So what we did is we thought, okay, well, we have this team-based business style now, and we have this change all the time that seems to really stress people out. So we looked back at so all of those typing systems are based on Carl Jung's work. Jung, depends on how pointy-headed you are. Jung, Carl Jung. Jung is from the 1920s. He's the one that really started talking about, psychologists started talking about how of all the humans in the world, you could really start putting people into these sort of buckets because we all have this sort of, we recognize habits and traits in each other, regardless of culture or age or anything like that. So and that's how like Myers-Briggs got developed and all these other archetypes and all kinds of things. So we said, you know what, we get that. And that's kind of the same idea. We really sort of, we love that idea because clearly we can see patterns in people around us, but it's kind of missing the mark. And so what we went back and looked at all the research and thought about what's really going on here. And what we came up with is our own axes. And what we thought is if we could split our axes into, on one hand, people that love working in teams and people that are fine working on their own. And that doesn't mean they don't like people. It just means that they're really self-driven and the social construct doesn't really affect them. And then we have, on the other hand, the socially driven, team-driven people really can be greatly affected by what's going on around them and the stability around them. And they really like that social structure. The other axis for us is chaos to order. So the order side is people that they do not like chaos. They like to come to work every day and know exactly what they're supposed to do and understand what their role is. And there's none of this crazy, let's brainstorm crazy new ideas that might never happen or any of that stuff. And then the other side of the spectrum are the people that love the chaos, that feeling like regular routine is very constraining and constricting, and that makes them nuts. And so they really like this chaotic feeling of the environment. And so so that's our sort of our Cartesian graph. Let me see if I can line that up with the camera, something like this. That's too hard. So I actually bookmarked the page. So on page 26 of the book. So here, let me see if I can make that better. So here what we have is our two team to self and order to chaos. And so we have fixers in the team to chaos, and then we have independents in the chaos and self, and we have organizers in the order and self, and then the stabilizers in the order and team. Now, we've intentionally named these so you kind of get what that means straight off the bat, right? Like if I said I'm a fixer, you can probably guess how I like to operate. Or if I'm an organizer, you may be able to have some sense of that. But that doesn't necessarily mean all of the things. So I would say that I'm a fixer, but that doesn't mean I'm not an independent person. So we have to be a little careful about how much we sort of spread this out across personality typing and stuff. So what we like to say is these 4 types are really about understanding how you like to work in your work life and often in your home life too. One example I use a lot is my mother is an organizer. So my parents, they're adorable. If you happen to know them, you know they are. If you don't know them, hopefully you'll get to meet them someday because they're amazing. But so my dad is a fixer. He's always looking to solve problems. So remember, fixer is chaos oriented and team oriented. So he loves to be surrounded by people crazily. Like He despises being alone, I would be so bold as to say. And then he also is always worrying. My mom always called him the worrier of the family. He was always worrying about what could go wrong and how to fix it and all that. So he's definitely a fixer. My mom, on the other hand, she is an organizer. And she is very self-driven, and not, again, she doesn't like working with people or teams or family for that matter, but she just doesn't need the social structure that other people might need. And she also is very organized and orderly, and is driven by logic and those sorts of things. So, you know, the kind of person that has a hard time getting a joke because it's not necessarily logical. I have a little bit of that. Testify. Anyway, so the funny thing about them is, my mom, I have always said, God forbid, that if my mom passes before my father, so if my mom dies and my dad is left alone, he will have to remarry or move in with someone because he will go crazy by himself, like crazy. My mom, on the other hand, if my dad dies first and she's left alone, she'll be totally fine. I mean, she'll still visit family and she'll go around and have she volunteers and has her whole thing happening, but she's fine living by herself and puttering around, and she won't even notice. I mean, she'll notice that my dad's missing, but I mean, won't miss that sort of social structure all the time. And so I like to use them as an example because I think for a lot of us, we can start seeing these types in our families and people we know personally, and then they're a little easier to translate to maybe work environments. And so my mom is an example. As an organizer at home, my dad's the fixer, and so he was worrying about fixing things. But my mom doesn't worry about fixing things. There's not a problem. She just doesn't worry about it. Like, she can fix things if she needs to, but it's not a big deal for her. She doesn't worry about it. Now, my dad's one of those guys that can go figure out what's wrong and just go take care of it because that's kind of how his mind works. Now, my mom, at her job before she retired, she was running the office that she worked at most of the time. She had a boss, but the boss was on travel and gone a lot. And so she essentially ran things. And so she can be an organizer, can be a fantastic leader, and people loved working for her. So I want to be really careful that we don't start assuming that one type is better than the others, depending on whatever that might look like. So this is the important thing. And in the book, of course, we have a ridiculous ton of information about each one. There's like 6 pages or more on each type and how they're great and how they're not great, or at certain things, or what kind of leader they are, and that kind of thing. So it's really important to think about. And the fun thing about the team dynamic part of it, and that's really what excites us, is that in a group of thousands that we have typed at different organizations, at groups of thousands, we can actually start seeing patterns emerge in departments and divisions and teams in a way that really makes a lot of sense. And so, and it helps them connect and interact. And one example is we're working with a company who has a person that we're coaching, executive coaching, and she has this great team of people, but she's an organizer, and so she doesn't really necessarily interact well with everybody. It's the same way, because another example, maybe more clear, is that we're working with an organization that has the CEO is an organizer. She does not need people to check in with her, to high five her, to even be like, feel like team, like you and I might think, well, I need my team around me. She literally works on her own, totally fine. But the rest of her team, almost to a person, is very socially connected. And so for her, it's really, so her team feels a little bit like she doesn't care, she doesn't value them, she's disconnected. It's really not that at all. It's about the fact that she doesn't realize what they need, because she personally doesn't need it. So she doesn't necessarily even understand what they're looking for. So I think it's really important. It's really an important tool, because it really takes out a lot of those personality challenges that we have with all of our bosses and all of the people that we work with. So it's not about Susie's a jerk and that she treats me like a jerk. I mean, some people are jerks. We go around and around on this, because Meg will tell you that people are jerks. And I'm like, I like to assume they're not first, and then they have to sort of convince me otherwise. But a lot of it's what's going on. So one example is we're working with a woman whose personal life is a freaking disaster. And I mean, so much struggle and personal angst and all kinds of things. Teenage daughter problems, divorce, just really, really, I mean, I think she had some issues with her parents before that. Like, just really, really, this poor woman, a lot of challenges in her personal life. Well, and so then at work, what happens is she's a stabilizer. Forgot to mention that part. Stabilizer. Well, stabilizers love order. Well, her home life, disorderly. And so then what happens is at work, she actually kind of doubles down on the order at work and like feels like she's micromanaging her staff, and they feel that way. And she's kind of driving them crazy. And so it's like, how do you, hey Lynn, how do you have her chill out a little bit about being a stabilizer, an orderly person, and preferring order when half of her life is chaos? And so she tries to really make the rest of it really orderly. And she really is a nice person, and her team, she loves her people. She just doesn't really know why she's acting like a crazy person. So the nice thing about this culture type structure is it really allows a lot of insight into each other and how we think and act in a team. So that's really cool, both in a self-awareness sense and also in a how do I work together sense. And so it's just really provides a framework that we can talk about really complicated conversations and awkward topics. And frankly, we all want to go to work and feel like we're valued and we're part of a team, and we're proud to stand next to the people that work with us. And it's just really a way to kind of break down the barriers to those things, whether it's behaviors that are driving each other crazy, or how do we figure out how to work together. This really gives culture types really provide a way to do that. And like I said, there is just a ton of examples in the book and a ton of pages. And so if you don't know what you are, please go online and take our quiz. I think Michelle has posted it a couple different times. But the Rose Group, it's just rosegroupintl.com/the-quiz, but there's links in the group, Facebook group. We do have a much more comprehensive survey that you can take, assessment that you can take. And if you're interested in that, let me know. I think Andy took it the other day because some of the mobile devices, Apple's iPhones, sometimes the quiz gets a little honky with them. And so happy to send you the full link. Just mention in the comments that you'd like to take the full survey. Now, the full assessment does not give you an immediate response. I'll have to email, or someone will have to email you back. We'll post your results in the Facebook group, probably. It's the easiest way to do it. And that way, you can get the full assessment and see if that gives you any more insight into how you landed. We are continually refining the assessment. We've assessed about, I think we're probably a couple thousand people now. And so we're kind of at that point where we feel like we've got a lot of data, and so we can kind of start tweaking those questions. So it'd be a great time to have you give it a try and let us know what you think. Okay, so that's kind of was the starting place where we want to talk a little bit about culture types and just expose you to some of the ideas about culture types. And of course, there's a million iterations and applications for culture typing, and we'll get to those on other days where we talk about specific instances, or if you have specific questions that we can answer with culture types. The one question that came up to be answered from the community was, how do you figure out if your job is really a good fit from a culture type perspective? And this is something that's really exciting. We really started working on this Ooh, about a year ago, there's a company who's a recruiter company. What they do is they go out to these huge monster and our HR application sites, and where you put your resume in, and they pull all that data in, and then they help companies sort out what they actually want to hire, and how do you even deal with a million different records and all that stuff. Well, the cool thing is we realized early on that a big problem with people being unhappy at work is the fact that they are mismatched to their job. So as a fixer, I want some chaos in my everyday job, in the sense of not drama. I think we can all say that drama is a drag in the true sense of the word. But for us, for fixers, what we really like is the challenge of problem solving, and maybe some chaotic things. Like sometimes surprises are interesting and challenging and not always awful. So as a fixer, and this story's in the book, as a fixer, my first job was a stabilizer job, which was, here's the recipe of how you do your job. We want you to go away and do this way and only this way. And if you do anything else, it's wrong. And that was okay at first. But the challenge, of course, is that as a fixer, it didn't really satisfy that sort of deep need to fix or problem solve. And so that was a great job for me right away. It was my first professional job out of college. I graduated on the 4th of May, and I started that job on like the 20th. So it was like really soon, a couple weeks after I graduated. But I didn't know shit about anything. I didn't know anything. So that was really great. It gave me a really formulaic sort of how you get work done sort of approach, which was great. But after a couple of years, it just was not suiting me anymore. And so I ended up doing something else, quitting that job. I stayed in the organization, but just changed roles. And I really have thought about that a lot, and how much that has, in retrospect, of course, because we just kind of figured a lot of this out recently, in retrospect, how much that has affected my career choice and my life choices, frankly. Because not feeling intellectually challenged has always been a real kind of deal breaker for me. Like, in the sense of, if I don't have an opportunity to fix things, then I don't stick around. And so how we tell if Jake wants the extensive assessment, so he's going to get it. So the trick for us is, what we're doing is, when you look at a job, so how we're doing it for this, we're calling it culture type match, so CTM. So how we think about it for CTM, culture type matching, is look at the job description. And a lot of times the job description will hide what your day-to-day is really like, but not always. So if you're looking at a job description, you can kind of look for a keyword. So if you're a fixer like me and you want to get a job that's fixery, then you look for jobs that say, deals with a lot of people, must have cross department communication skills. Depending on the travel, that could be stabilizery or fixery, depending, or chaos or freedom. And so you want to look for some kind of key words. What we do for jobs is we actually ask the job poster. So let's say let's say the city of Spearfish, that's where we live. The city of Spearfish has a job opening. What we will ask that city of Spearfish is, does this person do the same thing every day? Does this person have a constantly changing schedule? Does this person, even though they might be in an office all day, do different things all the time? And so we really try to get a sense of that chaos versus order piece. And then we also ask questions like, do they work in a team? Are they critical to a team? Do they work alone? And so because of those are sort of our two axes, we can ask about 6 questions, and then we can say, okay, this is a fixer job. So one example that we use a lot is, we were talking to an independent who hates being called an independent, by the way, because that somehow constricts their worldview and they feel like they're being pigeonholed, which is great because that's the independents are the only ones that feel that way. So I always know what they are when they ask those questions. So an independent came up to me. He works for a computer science internet company, basically, where they deal with SEO issues, which is, how the web pages, how you are found. Like if you Google Rose Group International, does my web page actually show up, kind of thing. It's a way that people find you via search engines. Search engine optimization is what the SEO stands for. Anyway, so they deal with some of that work. And so this independent was talking to me, and I said, now let's say that we have a website with an SEO problem. And I said to an independent, I would say, hey, we've had a problem with this website. Go check it out, come back to me with a couple ideas about how you would improve it. And he would love that assignment because he's an independent. It gives him creativity, it gives him problem solving, it gives him, maybe he would even have to go talk to a few people. He loves that kind of thing. Now, if I said to him, hey, go to this website, look at this website, do all the analysis that you can on the numbers, and then come back and tell me what you think. He would hate that job because that's not what he likes to do. That's an organizer kind of job, not a independent kind of job. And so once he understood that, or once I explained it that way, he's like, oh my God, I would hate the second version of that description. I would hate to do that. But the first one he thought sounded really fun. And so it's not that particular jobs can be done only by one type. It's that the style of role matters. So if I have a stabilizer job, I'm going to ask people questions. Like, let's say I want to hire an executive assistant, and really the only thing she's going to get to do is to work logistics, check my email, make sure the wheels are on, talk to my CPA, all sort of like routine kind of stuff. Maybe there's a little bit of problem solving if something comes up, but mostly it's just going to be routine. I would ask things in the interview like, is it okay if you do the same thing every day? Do you prefer order? Do you prefer things to be orderly, or do you prefer things to be a little up in the air? Are you on time? And not that I care necessarily about punctuality. I do, but that's a more of a professional thing. But if someone has a hard time being on time, a lot of times those people are not stabilizers and organizers, because they're as a fixer, I'm really not that orderly about a lot of things. So I can ask insightful questions. I'm not going to ask somebody if like, hey, do you love to solve problems proactively, and then stick them in front of a computer for 12 hours a day? Like, oh my God, they would kill themselves. And so this is the thing. Like we a lot of times we ask questions about the kind of person we are, or the kind of role that we would want, when really that's not what the role is at all. So when you evaluate a role for yourself, a new job for yourself, you want to, first of all, be self-aware and know your culture type and what kind of structure that you like. And then, if you're an independent, maybe we're hiring Bob Turnus, I'm happy to say. He's our new Chief Revenue Officer, and he's an independent. He lives outside of Denver, and he's just happy as a clam to like set up an office in his house and fly all over the country on his own and work with clients, potential clients, and networking and whatever he has to do. But that's his job, and he's an independent, and he loves that stuff. Now, if that was an organizer, they would be nuts. They could not handle, and not that you can't, you wouldn't be happy long term. Anybody can do any job if they set their mind to it. We totally believe that. But over a long period of time, a stabilizer would not like the idea that A, you don't work with a group of people, and B, that your job is so chaotic you don't even know where you might be on Monday. Neither is right or wrong. It's just where you can thrive. We want people to go to work and thrive and feel connected and engaged and excited about what they're doing. The other way around is you can, if you are applying for a job or interviewing for a job, you can ask your own questions about how this might fit for me. So if I was going to a job, I would say, I like to I don't like to do the same thing every day. What's this job like? Or what is this role like? Or let me talk to the manager I'll be working with, or some other colleagues, that I'll be working with. And then I'd ask them similar questions. What does this look like on a day-to-day basis? Because any job title can be a stabilizer job, a fixer job, an independent job, or an organizer job. It just would depend on how the environment was around me. That would determine if I could thrive there or not. Now, again, a lot of us intellectually decide we're going to take a job that might not suit us just to get in the door of a company that we want to work in, or maybe you feel like you're stuck in a community because your partner's there, and so you just need a job and it doesn't really matter. Well, some of that happens, right? Because life. But by and large, you can really do a much better job of figuring out how you're going to do at a role if you have a sense, if you match them by culture type. And I have this weird light thing happening. I don't know. I think it's the sun is moving around. So I'm going to try to step back a little bit more so it's not so blinding. But anyway, so that's one way to do it. And how we're doing it is when you come in and provide an application or an interest in a role, we actually are culture typing people as they come in to a application process. And then we embed that data into their database record. And then we know we have a fixer job come open. We have 3 fixers in the pipeline that we already love. Let's go interview them and see if they would want this role. On the flip side, we type the job based on about 6 questions. And then we know immediately, are these fixer to fixer match? Now, the company doesn't have to consider that. The company can decide to hire the person they want regardless. But what we really encourage is we're starting to track a lot of those sorts of things. And, oh, I hear Meg coming in the back maybe. Meg, is that you? Hey, hi, still on. Say hi. Hi, guys. How'd it go? Good. Good, okay. We're at 2:36. So if I would invite you to if you have any other questions, to post them in the comments. And I'll give you a few minutes to do that because we have a bit of a lag time. I might make Meg throw on the headphones and talk to you for a second too while we wait to see if you have any other questions for us. It doesn't have to be about culture types. It can be anything else that you have an interest in that we do or support. So anyway, here's Meg. Say hi, Meg.
Hey guys, hope you're having a really great day, day before Thanksgiving.
Oh, I forgot to even say that. Good job.
Emotions bucket.
No.
It's a holiday. Rachel said she forgot to even say anything about that, so it's a good thing that we got it in there.
Good job.
Hi Jake. So I'm not really, well, I mean, I know what you guys talked about, but I don't know what was said. So I'm not going to repeat anything that may have been said. So what I am going to tell you is that for Thanksgiving tomorrow, I am making a butternut squash and a pecan pie and a pumpkin pie. And I think that's it. And then we're going up to my mother's over the weekend. And I'm super excited to make some bacon wrap dates, something that Shelly McCutcheon might know about if she's still on here, because I don't have the recipe, but I stole the idea from a local place here, the Redwater Kitchen, and they were delicious. And so I'm going to try to recreate that magic. And so those are some really important things that you should know about my next 2 days. Also, it's beautiful here, but it's supposed to snow over the weekend, which will probably be equally as beautiful since it's almost the 1st of December. Did Rachel tell you what my culture type is?
I don't know. I'm sure it was, but please.
Yeah. So I'm a fixer. And Rachel and I have actually talked a lot about what our next book will be about. And that, so we're both fixers. I am a fixer. I'm a preventative fixer. And Rachel is a, what do we call it? Post-problem fixer.
Something like that anyway.
Yeah. And so, yes, I ate a plate of them at yoga last night. Man, they're so good. And I do not like dates. So it's a miracle to me. Anyway, so I like to find out what a problem might be and then fix it before it happens. Rachel likes to get in the middle of big, juicy, ugly problems and fix them once they've happened. So the funny dynamic that happens between the two of us is I'm always trying to fix this problem, and she's like, it's fine, just let it ride. It's fine. And I'm like, well, but if we do the thing now, then we won't have to do it later. Here's a good example. So Rachel likes to fix problems so post-problem or mid-problem that she forgot that we even had this conversation, which was hilarious to me. What's this gonna be? Okay. So like a year ago, I said, we should probably look into QuickBooks, but it's probably too expensive right now, but maybe we could find a free something. So I found a free something. It's a Wave, W-A-V-E app. It's pretty handy for those of you who are looking for a free, easy to use invoicing sort of budgeting tool platform. And she goes, we don't need that. She goes, I got a spreadsheet and it'll work fine. I'm like, well, a spreadsheet does work fine. You can put an invoice in Microsoft Word and that's great. But when we start to really have a lot of people to invoice and things to keep track of, and you're serving different executive coaching clients than I might be, and we don't know what's going on between the two of us, sometimes we should just have it all in one spot. I said, plus it gives us an opportunity to start thinking about our budget, like how much are we spending on travel, because that's really this for us, it's the same thing as marketing. That's what our networking and travel budget is, our marketing budget. And so all the things. And she's like, nah. I'm like, okay. Well, I still downloaded the Wave app and started invoicing people with it. And so fast forward a year, we're super busy. We got all these engagements and things. We're starting to, we add a chief revenue officer. That's pretty exciting news. Okay. So we add the Bob, and so we're thinking about like who's going to travel where and how much do we spend each month, and how much are we spending on PR and all the things. And she's like, I was really thinking that QuickBooks actually looks great. It looks like a great product. I wonder if we should have it. How much money should we spend on it? Genius. All the things. She is a genius. This has nothing to do with anybody's academic or brain power capability. But I was like, I looked at her, I said, are you shitting me? I said this a year ago. And she's like, no, you didn't. We didn't talk about this. I said, we definitely talked about this. So anyway, it was all funny. We had a good laugh about it. So as part of that conversation, I was like, man, it is so true that we are different kinds of fixers. And I think that the brilliance of that too is that it pulls it even further away from what we traditionally know as the DISC profiling system and the Myers-Briggs, and are you an extrovert or an introvert? Well, who really cares? That's how you process things. And then as a fixer, it doesn't mean that you're a fixer one way. There's lots of ways to be a fixer. There's lots of ways to be a stabilizer. And that's why there's so many jobs in the world. And that's why so many people are good at so many different things. So anyway, spoiler alert. I don't ever watch TV. I don't know what it's called. Spoiler alert. The next book is probably going to be about breaking out the 4 quadrants or the 4 culture types into what possibilities there are even beyond the 4.
It's not a touch screen.
Oh, that's not a touch screen. Dumb.
That's all. I think that's all.
Oh, Jake said, so my question would be, dealing with complacency, the chaotic war days of Q4 2017 through Q2 2018 have finally, thankfully, settled. But with that being said, things are getting efficient, procedures rolled out, and essentially things are working, air quotes. We still have exponential growth. The road is not. How can I continue to make the biggest difference and combat complacency? Okay, so post big change, the honeymoon period is over. How do we make sure that people are still engaging?
And not to just coast, because it's easier.
Can they hear you?
I don't know. I think so.
Okay. Well, okay. Yeah, that people aren't just going to coast. Also, that's when you might hit some retention walls. Because if you have a fixer who likes to fix big problems, the big problem's over and they're like, well, this is boring. I'm going to go find another problem to fix. Guess what? Don't do that, Jake.
No, that's what Jake is.
Yeah, I know.
So that's why he's worried about complacency.
Oh, that's why he's worried, yeah. So I think that the best way to think about it is think about your 4 culture types, know your team really well and who resonates with which work preferences, and make sure you continue to challenge those people in the way that is comfortable for them. So if you have an independent on your team, they like that chaos and freedom. Oh, they can hear you. Okay, great. They like that chaos and freedom. So every time or whenever it makes sense, if there's an opportunity to do some free thinking or manage a project, and it's something that's in their skill set, give it to them and let them kind of run with it, and congratulate them on their ability to do that and say, gee, thanks. I really appreciate that you can help out the team in this way. If you have an organizer, they're probably going to be really okay with the coasting. Coasting. It's not coasting, but that's, those of us who are on the top half of the graph are like, oh my God, this is boring. The people down here are like, oh, thank God. So those organizers, just keep giving them opportunities to make sure that to ask questions about things that are changing. Do they feel good about it? Do they have questions about it? Do they have ideas about it? And if they do, then absolutely let them run with it. Don't plug them into some big communal group where they have to meet with a bunch of people all the time. It'll be business necessary. Sometimes we get that. But if it's not, don't do that thinking that, as a leader, don't do that thinking that you're helping them. You're not. That's really super uncomfortable for an organizer. Stabilizers, order what's happening with other people, what's happening with all the people, how is this all going to impact me, and especially impact me relative to others, and make sure they have the details that they need. Those are the people that you do want to plug into focus groups. So let's say you go through the big change, you're a little bit worried about complacency, and you've got a group of people who are always sort of like, I call them the water cooler people. Not that they're gossipy and shitty people, just that they're the ones that like to talk and say, oh, how did this impact your department, and what happened over here, and did you hear about Susie and blah, blah, blah thing. So when you have an opportunity to set up some focus groups to talk about like what the next big change might be, or how you're going to go through it, or what happened in the last one, and what areas there are for improvement, put those stabilizers in that group, because you'll get a lot of juicy information from them about how it impacted in all the different ways. Fixers, a lot like independents, keep them engaged. Make sure they have opportunity for freedom, opportunity to work in teams and get onto some big projects, the next things. They would also be good in those focus groups. Good question, Jake.
I would also say that as long as people are performing on target, that's not really complacency. That's just performance. And so you, Jake, I know, love challenge and something new. And if you're not tackling something big, you don't feel like you're doing things. And so just be aware that there's other people like you on your team, and figure out who they are. And maybe, but kind of try to channel some of that a little bit, because the other thing that Meg does that you might do is that if there's not actively a problem to be solved, she might look for problems that don't necessarily need solving. And so what happens is she'll go looking for something to do, i.e. your question, I feel like I'm being complacent, or I feel like my team's being complacent. But if they're performing to standard or even exceeding standard, then there's really nothing to fix. And so what I would do is maybe think of a project or a goal or something that you and your other like-minded fixers in your organization are really trying to find something for you to work on together, so that the people that are organizers and stabilizers, they can cruise and kick ass and become really specialized and the best in their field, and they're the experts, right? Those guys are the ones that stick with the thing for a long, long time and are like the best at it. Fixers, we kind of, we'll try this and try that and see how that is. And so we tend to be more generalists. And so give yourself and your other fixers some new interesting challenge, so that you give the order preference people some time to just enjoy the lack of chaos. I mean, that's part of our challenge, right? Is how do you recognize what other people need and honor that, as well as honoring what you need for you as the leader of your team. So that's what I would start thinking about a little bit.
He says, I definitely look for problems, haha.
Yes, I know.
Sometimes problems exist where other people don't see them. Like, for instance, Rachel's luggage is an atrocious, abominable, almost embarrassing mess. And I want her to get new luggage, and she will not because it's well traveled.
For thousands, millions of miles.
I know.
Beautiful. But she hates it, so.
She looks like a bumpkin when we.
She does not look like a
She does.
Okay, anyway.
All right.
All right, we should go. Great chatting. Thanks for the question as we went. Jake, it's always great to hear from you. And Shelly, too. Thanks for sticking in there. And for everyone that's dialing in later, if you have questions that came up for you, just post them on the Facebook group, and Michelle or Meg and I will see them and get back to you ASAP. So Jake also wants to do the full assessment. So I offered that to anybody who wanted it. So
nice.
So yeah, so I'll post that link, and then we'll have to post your results as they get taken. So Cyber Monday.
Don't you worry, Santa Claus
I'm
is
afraid
looking.
This is happening without my permission. So.
Yeah, well, I'm the boss of the luggage. I say so.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Lead powerfully.
Change the world. Bye. Happy Thanksgiving. I remembered to say it.